Hello everyone, welcome back to Spurs in the Stands. I'm Sarah, and well, the past 24 hours, if we thought the 24 hours before the last 24 hours were bad, for me, the last 24 hours have been even worse because I told you in the last video that my phone had died when I did the match day vlog. I told you my laptop was playing up, and now I've filmed a video yesterday and my microphone decided to back up. So I recorded a video for you guys yesterday and it was really crackly. So I'm really hoping that the microphone in this video is not going to be crackly because it's been an absolute nightmare. And not only that, it's now saying that my browser is running out of space. So things just go from bad to worse in the world of Tottenham Hotspur, despite the fact that I've emptied my laptop of 100 gig. So I don't know what's going on. I really hope that this is not going to just completely combust on itself, because we do have a little bit to get through today, because I want to talk about a little bit around what has been going on over the past 48 hours. Now, look, I know that my last video, which was the match day vlog, went a little bit viral and it kind of tipped into our rivals' territory. So I have seen all of your comments on there. I don't mind who wants to come on and join along the ride with us. I have no problems with that at all. All I ask is that we keep this a pleasant space, to be mild about it. There were some very quite inappropriate comments, and whilst I appreciate you guys commenting and liking and sharing and following along, that's all great. But of course, like this is a channel intended for Spurs fans. So respectfully, I ask you to respect the forum. And if for any reason that I see anything that is outside of what I would deem to be acceptable, I will be hiding those comments. So you might think that other people can see your comments, but if they are racist, if they're derogatory or rude in any type of way, I will be limiting those. And of course, even if you write horrible things or downvote on videos, it still counts as a click or a like or a boost on the algorithm anyway. So just so that you guys know, because as you guys know, if you've been here since the beginning, I try and be as transparent and authentic as I can be on this channel in a world filled with AI bots and everyone who seems to have the same opinion about the relegation conversation that has been going on in the realm. And to be honest with you, I was thinking about, what do I want to do this video on? Do I want to talk about our players because they seem to be getting away scot-free right now? And I thought to myself, well, maybe we should hold fire on that conversation, because if I'm going to be talking about, should we keep, sell, transfer players, that conversation might be irrelevant in a few weeks' time, So there's so many questions that are coming up and being and arising right now due to the situation of where we're at right now. And the business of sport, TIFO, there have been so many channels over the last 48 hours who have been having this conversation around relegation and how much is it going to cost to be relegated and all of that stuff. And even to the extent that my dad said to me, Sarah, you've become a little bit negative, because I said, I just can't see us winning any games. I can't see which games our points are going to come from. And that's because we've won 2 in our last 18. And my dad said, but you're a mindset coach. And so I had to have my dad stick it to me to tell me and remind me that, yes, I am a mindset coach. And I was thinking, how can we reframe this conversation to not be delusional, not to have, unfounded positivity, but to be both realistic and optimistic. And of course, as you guys know by now, that optimism from me doesn't necessarily mean being uncritical. So we have quite a few things on our chests at the moment, and probably some stuff that I didn't even realize was going to come up in this video, because look, there's been a lot of conversation talking. We've heard now, I said in my last video, the script has already gone out the window, by the way, guys. But I said in my last video that relegation cost us about 200 million, and my estimations were not too far off, because Kieran Maguire has obviously since been on Talk Sport, finance footballing expert, if you want to say that, and his specialty is looking into these things in a bit more detail, and he's speculating that it would be nearer 250 million. So whichever way you spin it, it's not an ideal situation, but I'm going to even hold fire on the relegation conversation, because yesterday I did a talk. I told you guys I was really busy this week, and yesterday I did a talk in a workplace, and it was all about how to take empowered action, how to how to achieve your goals through taking empowered action, and how you create clarity in order to do that. And I was thinking about the synergy between footballing world and just achieving your goals in general, because it doesn't matter whether you're an individual, it doesn't matter whether you're an institution, it doesn't matter whether you're a squad of players. Ultimately, the blueprint for success remains the same. Everyone in our squad has capabilities. They have potential. The problem is that they are not reaching their potential. They're not collaboratively working together. They're not listening to their manager. They're not clicking in a way that's picking up us points at the moment. And so it got me thinking, because the very first question that I asked in my presentation to 100 people yesterday was, what is the change that you want to see right now? What is the change, and why do you want to see it? And I fear that this question internally hasn't actually been asked or answered inside the club. And I do think that Igor Tudor, being a coach himself, has recognized this. And of course, we heard him say when he joined Tottenham last week, oh my gosh, so much has happened, guys. But when he joined last week, he said, focusing on one goal, that is the main objective right now, to get clear on that, what that one main goal is, and become aligned on it. I would assume that means winning games, but the first of which obviously was quite a dire situation. But as I said before in my last video, that came about because we started to see things through rose-tinted glasses. So now we've all been brought back down to earth. We've heard all the noise and the speculation about relegation. I want to sort of level us out a little bit and look forward to potentially what needs to shift and what needs to change right now in order to see success at Tottenham Hotspur. And part of that is going to be the tactics. That's the first thing, is to make sure that our back line is, how can I say this? Some of the criticism about the back line that came about, and I'm going to bring into the conversation here about Mickey van der Ven and him not listening to Igor Tudor, because part of the conversation around this back line and the disorientation of our back line in that game against Arsenal was speaking a lot about how we want to be aggressive and front-footed and push forward. Now, that I agree with. We need to be more aggressive and on the press. However, having been someone who recorded a lot of Igor Tudor on the sidelines, he wasn't necessarily talking to Mickey, and he wasn't necessarily talking to Dragusin. He was actually, in my personal perspective, he was speaking to all of them. He was going like this, and this is a very clear universal signal to mean talk, communicate, because our players were not communicating. There were times in the game where Mickey was kind of asserting his authority, but the problem was, because Mickey and Dragusin kept dropping back and not holding their line, for me personally, it wasn't so much about being aggressive and pushing forward. It was more the fact that we were never catching them offside, because they were always running through. Gyökeres was always running through, and Dragusin was playing him onside. And so in a game where you're trying to play the high line, you need to hold your line so that you're making the opponent and forcing the opponent into an offside position. And look, it's not the best tactical play, but in football these days, the offside rule is something which teams play on. The teams play on this offside rule. And so from my perspective, and look, this is one perspective of many, I think this is more to do with playing the offside rule than it is being so recklessly pushing forward and aggressive in our game, because certainly that's something that's needed. But when we're talking about getting the basics right, it's literally just holding your line, which we're incapable of doing right now. And I don't know necessarily if this is something that happened under Frank, because we did have a lot of goals disallowed against us previously in the season. But maybe I need to do a bit of research into this to actually see how many offside goals teams are scoring against us right now, because it does feel like last year, one of the problems we had as well was when Gray was playing in the back line, he's also not a natural defender. So he was also dropping off and not holding that line last year. And I feel like Paulini is not a centre-back. Dragusin is, I don't know what he is. And Mickey van der Ven is already in his head in Real Madrid or Liverpool or United or whoever has been connected with him over the last 24 hours, because I just can't keep up. It's crazy. But for me, I think that one of the things that needs to happen in order to stay in the Premier League and to pick up some points is we need to get structured. We need to get structured. Yes, we need to have consistency. But in order to have consistency, you need to get things right in the first place. At the moment, the only thing that's consistent within the squad is losing games. So in order to change that, in order to start winning games, you need to have the basics right. And I think this is, for me, what Igor Tudor was talking about after the game. The basics are just not there right now. And that was so visible and obvious to see. And I've seen tactical breakdowns of the game. I watched, was it James? I've forgotten his name. Oh my gosh, what crazy world. But yeah, he was talking about the tactical analysis. And he was looking at the square in the middle of the pitch, and he was looking at sort of our front four, which were Sarr, Gallagher, Xavi, and Mawani, and how they were structured and how we were so open and how Saka was able to run into the gap. But for me personally, I take that on board, and I think that is one tactical thing that could be shifted. In other words, you play your front two midfielders a little bit wider so that then you're not being cut open in midfield. And I think that's part of it. But I think the other part of it is if your back line plays in the position they're supposed to be playing in and they are, holding their line, then that challenge is almost mitigated. That problem that you have, it's not a perfect solution, but at least then you're not leaving yourself so open that when someone runs onto the ball, they're already onside and facing your goal, So I think it's part of the same thing. It's part of the same challenge. Yes, that might be tactical shifts that need to happen, but I also think that we need to be sorting out this back line, because this is a problem that has been ongoing for a couple of seasons. This has been going on since Ange, because we've just been letting in goals for fun. Right. And it's stupid. It's as I was saying in my video, it's football suicide. If you want to win a game, right, yes, you have to go and score goals, but equally, you can't be leaving yourself so open when you're having a team which is making a high press and pushing for you and they have more quality and ability on the ball. You have to be stronger. And there's so many players in our squad right now who are not showing the strength that they are capable of. If we're coming from the perspective that these players have not reached their ceiling yet and they should be so much better than they actually are, then their ceiling has to be higher than this. I said in the last video that after the first half we reached our ceiling, and if Igor Tudor is coming in with any kind of conviction to back up what he said, that we're not going to get relegated, then they need to prove themselves. The players need to prove themselves, and I don't even need to go through the squad right now because pretty much every single player has more in the tank than what they are giving. That's what I believe. The reason why they're not giving it, maybe they're getting sucked into the noise themselves. Maybe they're getting distracted by what's been going on around them. The toxicity. I mean, they shouldn't even be saying that there's been toxicity in the stadium, because quite frankly, last game, the fans were so behind the squad. And yes, you do have to give fans something to shout about, because effectively when we were 3-1 down, everything just petered out. The whole stadium went quiet. And so, on the flip side of that, yes, the fans can get behind the team, but they also have to show us something. And at the moment, they're just not showing us anything other than a lack of fight, a lack of clarity. And this brings us back to the first question that I asked. You need to have clarity about exactly what your position is on the pitch. What is your role within the system? Because these players are a mishmash of 5 different managers over the past 5 years or so. You've got people up for Romero, who was signed under Conte. You've got Bissouma. You've got so many different players who were signed to play within different systems that we've ended up with this mishmash that no one knows their role. No one knows who their partnership is supposed to be within that structure, and we talk about how football should be free flowing. And the problem is that once you've been playing together in a certain system repeatedly, that becomes instinctive. It becomes habit, because you look up and Xavi knows, whoever's on my right-hand side, whoever's on my left-hand side, and you play the ball with the knowledge that they're going to be in that space. And the problem is that because we haven't been clicking and gelling and playing the same system consistently for so long, every game is a different tactic. Every game is a different structure. And the thing about under Ange was that we always had the same philosophy. The problem was that didn't work for us either. And this is where the breakdown has happened, to the point where I was even tempted to call this video an existential crisis. But ChatGPT thankfully saved me from doing that, because it was like, no, Sarah, you're going to attract a doom scrollers. And that's not the type of community that you want to be building. So look, this is a bit of an existential crisis. And the reason why that has happened is because we don't know who we are. There is a feeling of anxiety. There is a feeling of how can I say this? It's a questioning of who are we as a football club? Who are we as fans? Who are we as a club? What have we become? And all of these questions are from this state of existential dread, because we're kind of feeling now that relegation is a serious question that needs to be on the cards. And so when you get this feeling of being just so lost, which was the first thing I said in my last video, and I've seen other people speaking about feeling lost and feeling broken right now, this is, to summarize, it is an existential crisis. And the way that we overcome that, the way that we create that clarity, is that we need to recognize, first of all, that this is just a normal part of life. And every single team in the Premier League, bar Everton and arguably Arsenal, who maybe should have been relegated when there was the World War, but every team has been relegated in the Premier League. And so, things are cyclical. We run through these cycles, but this is not the first time that we've been in this position. And, for better or for worse, some of you are saying you love the dad and daughter relationship, but something that I'm quite lucky, I guess, is that, I have a generation or a lineage of being a Spurs fan. So, throughout the generations, I am a millennial, but I'm the first generation really that has not seen our team be relegated. Anyone who's older than a millennial, you're going to have seen our team be relegated. You're going to have been experiencing this kind of desperation before, this kind of existential crisis, and so I do think that there is a place for all fans in this conversation, whether you're young or you're old. It doesn't matter your age, because we can learn something from everyone as fans. I'm not talking about the club here, just as fans, so that we don't lose our heads. I can see you guys in the comments talking about, having seen the team be relegated in the 70s and what you guys went through emotionally. I've even seen, my dad was saying, when they went down, the slogan was, "We will be back." And then they had, when they got promoted again, the T-shirts that they got printed, which said, "We're back." So due to popular demand, I believe is what the T-shirt said. And maybe even some of you here might have even had one of those T-shirts. So look, all this to say is that when you're trying to create confidence and clarity moving forward, you need to look at the big picture and realize that whilst this might be a bit of an existential crisis, it is not something that's so unfamiliar to a lot of teams in the Premier League. So keep your heads. And the thing is that you need to have change, but it needs to be action orientated. And the problem is that this board, like, they're talking about the fact that they're going to break the wage structure, which is the biggest load of PR nonsense I've heard this year coming out of their PR machine, because we've heard this before. The Guardian did a cover yesterday about, Tottenham breaking their wage structure. And it was revealed to us that Conor Gallagher is now our highest paid player. So I don't know whether Romero have got annoyed about that and thrown their toys out the pram, potentially, because all of the stuff that Romero was coming out saying was after Gallagher was signed. And the same as Mickey's attitude has changed since that transfer window. So maybe in part they were made promises that they were going to reinforce the squad, and so they're disappointed. The other part of that is maybe they themselves are just a little bit miffed that they're not now the highest paid players. And to be quite honest with you, I have no idea why Gallagher is our highest paid player, because he's not been showing us very much at all. I've been so disappointed with him. But then again, on the flip side, and to flip the script on that, how can you expect any more from him? The guy's been here not even a month and he's already had 2 managers. It's crazy, right? So, look, when you're going through this period, and I've been speaking about this period of transformation, we all have, even the club has. You need to use this time. This is the period where we should be using this time to reevaluate things, to set new goals, to bring about meaningful change on an institutional level. And so at the moment, we're all kind of in this limbo because we don't know if we're going to be in the Premier League or the Championship, which means you can't answer the question of who's the manager's going to be, which means you can't answer the question of which players are going to stay. And that is why we're in this existential crisis, because right now we don't know who we are. And that is a bigger problem than a relegation question. Do you guys see what I'm saying? Like the fact that if you lose who you are in all of the noise, you're not going to be able to block out and filter out all the negativity. And at some point that is going to get to you, and the pressure is so strong. And so when you face periods of really high pressure, what's important is that you stay together, you stay united. And the reason why this existential crisis is so bad is because the fans are not united. We're not united in the fact that we want the best for this club. Forget the question of do we think that we're going to stay in the Premier League or are we going to be in the Championship? That's not even the question. The question that I'm saying is that we have fans, so-called fans, that actually want the club to be relegated. And I mean, I would even argue that then you're probably not a real fan, because the situation would just be so much worse if we did get relegated. Like, I mean, how anyone can even want that as a fan is kind of crazy to me. Like, clearly you don't understand how the mechanics of football actually work if you really want your team to fail. Anything in life, how can you want something to fail if you're in support of it? And look, we live in a world now where people are so lost. We're being sucked into this conversation. And so you have to stay headstrong. You have to look in the direction of not how much is it going to cost if we get relegated? No. What needs to happen to change? What needs to happen in order for us to stay up? And if part of that, and I'm not saying fans are the reason, because of course it's the player's responsibility, it's the manager's responsibility, it's ENIC's responsibility. However, fans should not be absolving ourselves of the impact that we can have in helping the team push forward for the rest of the season. And in that respect and in that regard, and I'm speaking to you guys on YouTube because this is a social channel and we are hopefully majority Spurs fans still, which means that we all need to be united going forward, even if the conversation is so difficult right now. That is how you get through tough times. In that video I did about, Tottenham's 12th man, and I shared with you my late friend Wayne and what he was saying about connection. Connection is what can spark something so united within the fan base. You need that connection. And right now it's been so lost. I just feel like, I don't even know, maybe this channel is part of that in helping people feel more connected. I don't know. But look, we could do a whole mindful session on this because I feel like some people need some meditation right now, including myself. But look, when you have anxiety-driven reflection, rather than sort of getting more clarity about who you are and what you stand for, the press conversation around breaking the wage structure doesn't answer the question of what do Spurs want to become, because now you're just throwing money at the problem. I mean, the problem is actually bigger than money. I know we've said as Spurs fans, we want to see highly paid players. We need to be competing on a wage front so that we can be competing across all fronts. However, if you don't spend well, then the problem is still underlying. The problem is still there. You can't just throw spaghetti at the wall and hoping it's going to stick. You can't just throw £100 million at a problem and expect that to solve the problem, because the problem is bigger than the money. The money is actually not the answer. The money is a deflection for a problem which lies within that. Do you see what I'm saying? In other words, you could spend 100 million, 1.2 billion, let's say, on 12 players, right? Or 11 players, whatever. You get what I'm saying? You could spend £1 billion on 10 different players, £100 million each. Is that going to solve the problem? No, it's not. It's not going to solve the problem because you still have no identity. You're in an identity crisis. You see what I mean? And so that's the difference with this. That's the difference. Money is only so much of the problem. The underlying problem is you have people who don't know what to do with it. Yeah. And so if you're going to release a press release to the Guardian saying we're going to break the wage structure and we're going to spend loads of money, I don't want to be hearing that. What I want to be hearing is this is who our manager's going to be come the summer, regardless of what division we're in. These are the players we're connected with, and this is the trajectory that we're going to be rebuilding from. And there's a difference in that. There's a difference. There's a difference in tonality. This is the identity that we want to be playing on the pitch. A couple of years ago, we did a whole rebrand with our logo, and we forgot who we were in the process. Lovely, pretty logo, but who the hell are Tottenham Hotspur? You know what I mean? Anyway, sorry, this wasn't actually supposed to be a rant, but oh my goodness. What is happening to Spurs in the stands? Anyway, just to park that, just quickly, Atletico Madrid and Galatasaray. I've just taken a complete left turn on that, haven't I? But last night, we're going to park that for a minute, but last night, Atletico Madrid obviously have progressed through the Champions League. Galatasaray play Juventus tonight, and we will find out tonight. I don't know when the draw is done, but we will find out who we're going to be playing next round in the Champions League. It's unlikely to be Juventus unless they score 4 goals at home, but you never know. You never know. Game of football, anything's possible. So we'll find out a little bit later tonight. I think for most people, the hopes and dreams of the Champions League is basically riding on the fact that we're going to win it. So guys, maybe now's the time to take off those rose-tinted glasses because we have bigger fish to fry than getting through the Champions League. And I mean, the only saving grace of that is we have more money. But the problem is you have a board that even if you do progress and you do get more money, they don't know what to do with it. And so this is such a systemic problem, you know? So I started this video, gosh, do you know what, guys? I had a whole list here of things I want to talk about. I've barely touched on any of them. Some of them. There was other, do you know what? We'll just part that. It's not even that important because it seems that the direction of this video has been about how do we move forward and what does taking clarity and confident action look like? And part of that is that behind the scenes right now, okay, I'm going to round this up. Behind the scenes right now, what I do not want to be hearing from the club is we've got loads of money to spend. What I want to be seeing is Vinay and Lange. Ange, they're all as bad as each other. But I want to be seeing Vinay and Lange either out the door or with some kind of strategic plan of how we're going to effectively spend that money in the summer window. What is that going to look like? And look, some of you have said, well, the club don't have an obligation to release their KPIs. Well, I'm sorry, but if the club are coming out saying we want to compete on all fronts and then they're not doing any of that and they're not spending any of that money, then yeah, as a season ticket holder who's probably spent the best part of 20 grand over my lifetime on season tickets, I do want to know where that money's going. I do want to know. Maybe I don't need to know the finer details of the KPIs, but I want to see a plan because we have no plan. We're just literally just riding out this wave and we're just going to see what happens. But they need to have a plan A of what happens if we stay in the Premier League. Is Pochettino the guy that they're going to bring in? And then once we get to a place that's secure and 7 points, 9 points clear, whatever that might be, then they can release that and start building on that. And then they need a plan B. They need a plan B. There's no point waiting. I know for a lot of people, they don't want to have the relegation conversation because it's not happened yet. But from a strategic planning perspective, they need to have that plan B in place. And that's not a joke. It's not a joke, right? Because things take a long time to plan. If you're going to be planning to, change your squad this season and reinforce your squad and get a new manager, because we don't even have a manager who's going to be in come June, you need to be making that plan B now. So you need to have a plan A. You need to plan for a best case scenario. And that would be hopefully what we all wish for and what we hope to see over the next few games. But also you need to have a plan B scenario of a worst case scenario of how do we deal with this if that's the eventuality. There's no point waiting until your second to last game against Chelsea for that to happen because it could happen way sooner than that. And football is such a volatile sport. The Premier League this year is so unpredictable. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know where it's going to end up. You have teams beating teams. You have teams drawing against teams that you never would have predicted. You know, you have teams in the bottom half of the table that probably you'd be surprised about. So it's a very unpredictable season. This video might have been a whole load of waffle. I don't know. They seem to be actually better when I watch them back. But look, guys, I don't really want to do like a rundown of news because I guess there's so much news and noise circulating right now. I do hope to go live a little bit later this week. I am going to try and order a microphone. I've looked into a few now. I'm also looking at getting a new phone. So if anyone has any recommendations of phones, but it seems like I've been out the tech market for so long. I don't know what's good and what's not anymore. But yes, just a couple of bits to round us off. TIFO, as in the YouTube channel TIFO, have done a video on what really went on behind the scenes with Thomas Frank and why things failed under Thomas Frank. It's a really quick video. If you guys are interested, you can go over and watch that. One thing I would say about that video is there was a couple of anonymous sources that are leaking from inside the club. And this is how we know quite clearly on all levels that the club's not aligned right now, because you have players who are not taking accountability and responsibility for their part. Because look, on the one hand, if you hate your boss, if you hate your employers, it's one thing to come and rave about them. But on the other hand, you're locked into contract and you made that choice. And so now you have to live with it. You have to be part of this squad and show yourself. And so I really, really hope that Igor Tudor is absolutely laying into them this week. I hope he is giving it to them. I hope that Igor Tudor is absolutely giving it to them up the arse. Well, blimey, where did that come from? Right. But I really hope that Igor Tudor is really laying into them this week, because someone needs to step into that role of authority, because there is no authority anywhere. There's no authority from head to bottom. And I think Igor Tudor is realizing that in his first week in the job, even though it's been so blatantly obvious to all of us for so long. Anyway, guys, I don't know where this rant is going. It's probably going on the road to nowhere. So we're going to talk a little bit more. No, I've got stuff to do a bit later. But maybe I'm going to try and hop on tomorrow live. Let's see how we go. But I hope the audio is okay on this. But otherwise, I'll see you all in the next video very, very soon. Thanks for watching and bye for now.